Imagine you're losing your hair, you want to do something, and you hear about this drug Finasteride. It's one of 2 FDA-approved options for androgenic alopecia. You read the research about it, you browse Reddit, you see some absolutely incredible before and after photos, and you're sold. And you start using it, you're hoping for the best, but months later, it's not working for you. Your hair doesn't look any better, maybe it looks worse. And now you start to wonder, am I doing something wrong? Is this my fault? Why am I the only one not getting results? In reality, you are not alone. There's a lot of people in this exact scenario. In this video, we're gonna walk through what is happening and what you can do about it, because with just a few tweaks, you can make a world of difference in your Finasteride outcomes. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Rob English. I am a consumer advocate and a researcher who specializes in hair loss disorders. I'm on the editorial board of a dermatology journal. I run the website perfecthairhealth.com, where we do a lot of advocacy and educational work in the hair loss space. Finasteride was originally developed to treat benign prostatic hyperplasia, or an enlarged prostate, but men using the drug actually noted a lot better hair growth outcomes, and so it was repurposed and tested for androgenic alopecia in men. If you fast forward today, Finasteride is one of 2 FDA-approved treatments for androgenic alopecia, and it is the gold standard intervention for this hair loss type. It's produced hundreds of thousands of success stories, many of which you can find online with impressive before and after photos, which begs the question, why doesn't it work for some people? How come those outcomes exist and yours don't look anything like that? And that is the topic of this video. First, we're gonna get into some obvious reasons why Finasteride might not be working. Then we're gonna dive a little bit deeper and describe why, even if you're doing everything right, you could still be running into a problem, because there's several things that you can do to fix this. The first thing is that Finasteride might actually be working for you, you just don't know it yet. When starting a treatment like Finasteride, it takes time to see results. The clinical studies show that microscopic hair gains, if you were to use some sort of dermatoscopic device and hold it to your scalp, within the first 3 months, you'd be seeing new hair growth popping out of the surface of your skin. But it takes months and months for that new hair growth to grow out and actually create cosmetic volume for your hair. And for this reason, when you look at patient satisfaction scores, it's really only around the 6-month mark where those benefits from Finasteride begin to become cosmetically perceptible. But that's not where Finasteride's results peak. They actually continue to get better and better and better over an 18 to 24 month period. And they only begin to actually plateau around the end of year 2. So with this in mind, you have to try Finasteride for quite a long period of time, around 18 to 24 months, to realize its full effects. And that means that judging your results at month 2, month 3, month 5, even month 7 is a little on the early side. So give yourself time to appreciate the full benefits of this medication with respect to what it can do to your hair. It might make a huge difference. And in fact, a lot of people who don't see regrowth in year 1 can see a lot of regrowth in year 2. Number 2, Finasteride could be working for you, but you might fit the broader definition of response rate. Now, the clinical data on Finasteride suggest that on average, you'll get about 10% more hair. But the clinical studies on Finasteride define response rate a little bit differently than you might interpret it. It actually means a slowing down, a stopping, or a partial reversal of hair loss versus placebo. So if you're losing hair at a slower rate than you would have not on treatment, that's technically a response. If you are stabilizing your hair loss, that's a response. And if you're seeing regrowth, that's also a response. And so that 10% increase to terminal hair counts that you would get on Finasteride, when you average all of those people together, that's the outcome, but not everybody actually sees hair regrowth in these clinical studies. So don't set your expectations that regrowth is a guarantee. In many cases, yes, 80 to 90% of people will respond to Finasteride. And yes, a majority of those individuals will get more hair, but it doesn't technically capture everybody. Now, if you're in that category where you're only noticing a slowing down of hair loss from Finasteride, or perhaps even stabilization, keep watching. These are potential indications that you have other issues that you need to resolve. We'll get into those in just a second. But beyond that, give yourself a little bit of grace, because anything that fits that definition of response is technically a response, even if it's less impressive than the anecdotes that you would read online. And speaking of anecdotes online, don't benchmark to those outliers you see on Reddit. These before and after photos are absolutely incredible. And obviously I'm thrilled for these people. I hope their results continue to be as good as they look in these pictures. However, We have to remember that these results are often 2, 3, or 4 standard deviations away from the typical response that you would get on finasteride. So the regrowth is just astronomical. And these are perhaps 1 in 500 or 1 in 1,000 responses. And the issue is that if we only go to Reddit and we look at all of these mega responses from finasteride, we set an expectation curve that is substantially out of the bounds of what finasteride will produce for us. And this can lead to a discrepancy in expectations versus reality when you start the medication. So keep this in mind. Keep in mind that we should be thrilled for these people, but that they don't represent a typical response. And you want to level set as best as you can when starting something like this so that you're not disappointed 1 or 2 years down the line. On average, what we can expect is that with finasteride, we can rewind the clock about 6 months to 36 months on how our hair looked. So you can get between 6 months and maybe up to 3 years of hair growth back. That's a really great outcome for a lot of people. Some people get more, some people get less. But that expectation setting, I think, is much more reasonable than what you would see on some forums showcasing these mega responders. Now, say you're setting reasonable expectations, you've used the drug long enough, and you understand the definition of response rate. And finasteride is still not working for you. You are losing hair just as quickly as before and really not seeing any response at all. What's going on here? Well, there actually is some decent clinical data to suggest exactly what is happening. We'll go through a few scenarios and what you can do to fix these problems. Number 1, you might not have a standard case of androgenic alopecia. You might have a hair loss type that is masking as androgenic alopecia, or an additional hair loss type or scalp disorder that is presenting alongside androgenic alopecia and muting your treatment response. I can't tell you how much this happens inside of our community. We have people who are undergoing standard treatments for androgenic alopecia, getting no response, and it isn't until they go and get a biopsy on their scalp that they realize they actually have another hair loss disorder or a concomitant hair loss disorder that has gone untreated for years. If you want examples of this, we have an interview with Carlo in our site who was told he only had androgenic alopecia, but his treatments were failing. And it wasn't until he got a biopsy that confirmed androgenic alopecia plus diffuse lichen planopilaris that he switched his treatment protocol and started to get regrowth. We have an interview on our channel with Alessandro, who was diagnosed repeatedly with androgenic alopecia, even given a hair transplant. And it wasn't until 10 years into failing these treatments that he went and saw a specialty dermatologist who looked at his scalp with a microzoom device, saw empty hair follicles, a spread of which suggested alopecia areata incognita, changed his treatment protocol, and then began to finally start to see hair regrowth. We have a similar story with Abraham in one of our YouTube posts. He was diagnosed repeatedly with androgenic alopecia. Conventional treatments were failing him. We had him buy a $25 microzoom device, take dozens of photos of his scalp, and when he sent us those photo sets, we saw a microzoomed environment that looked nothing like androgenic alopecia. There were dystrophic hairs, black dots, significant degrees of scalp inflammation, and when we found him a specialty dermatologist, that dermatologist confirmed multiple hair loss disorders and scalp conditions, switched his treatments, and now he has results like this in just a short period of time because he started to treat all of the underlying causes of his hair loss. I want to say this with absolute clarity. People who truly are not responding to finasteride oftentimes do not just have androgenic alopecia. You have to resolve these other conditions, but you have to first know that you even have them. Telehealth providers, they're not great at making these diagnoses. Most doctors and dermatologists aren't. You really have to find a specialist in hair loss who is also a dermatologist, and preferably one who is willing to do a biopsy on you and send that skin specimen to a dermatopathologist who specializes in hair loss and who's likely attached to a teaching university, so you know that they're up to date on all of the latest research. Because a failure to do this can mean that you can go years, sometimes decades, without actually treating the thing that's driving most of your hair thinning. So if you have any uncertainties at all about this, or if your hair loss presentation looks just a little bit different than a standard case of androgenic alopecia, this is something that should be at the forefront of your mind, especially if you're not responding adequately to finasteride or minoxidil or whatever else you're trying. Now, say that you do have androgenic alopecia, but you're still not responding. In this case, you might actually have androgenic alopecia alongside a scalp inflammatory condition. Scalp psoriasis, scalp eczema, seborrheic dermatitis, and associated conditions, these things are very commonly found alongside androgenic alopecia. Perhaps up to 30 to 50% of people have some sort of scalp inflammatory disorder, and yet they often don't even know that they should be treating this. Now, in 1992, there was actually a study that confirmed users of topical minoxidil, if they had underlying scalp inflammation prior to starting treatment, their response rates and their regrowth rates were significantly muted versus those who didn't. And it's my personal belief that this applies not just to topical minoxidil as a treatment, but to everything, including finasteride orally and topically. And what this indicates is that you really need to focus on resolving your scalp inflammation. Now, fortunately, resolving scalp inflammation is often as easy as first just identifying what it is and then treating it accordingly. With scalp eczema and seborrheic dermatitis, if you have symptoms like an itchy scalp, dandruff, oily scalp, maybe some light tingling from time to time, those are all indications that this could be you, and treating that could be as simple as doing a shampoo rotation of ketoconazole with zinc pyrithione or pyrooctanolamine or selenium sulfide. It could be as simple as making other changes as well. And I want to make sure that people take those opportunities, because if you don't, you might be selling yourself short significant gains on the side of finasteride or whatever other treatments you could be exploring for hair loss. We have videos on these shampoos. We have videos on ketoconazole. I'll link those below, and I'll also link our guide on seborrheic dermatitis below as well if you want to read that. But long story short, identify your scalp inflammation, identify your hair loss disorders, and fix all of those. Don't just target one. Next, you might have androgenic alopecia, but you might actually have genetics that don't allow for a robust response to finasteride. Now, finasteride works by lowering DHT. That's the hormone that's causally linked to androgenic alopecia. When you look at the clinical data on finasteride, it should lower DHT levels in the blood by about 70%. But that 70% reduction is just the average on a bell curve. If you look at the endpoints on that bell curve, some people get even bigger DHT reductions, and some people don't get any DHT reductions at all. When we've looked at members of our site, yes, most people will get a 60 to 70% drop in DHT. Some people will get an 80% drop, and in many people that we've measured who aren't responding to finasteride, their DHT levels either don't change, or in some cases they go up a little bit while on the medication. How can that possibly be? Well, there are now pharmacogenetic studies on finasteride showing that the drug metabolizes differently depending on somebody's genes. And depending on your gene set, if you happen to have a rarer combination of genes, you might not actually have the metabolic pathways to metabolize finasteride adequately, which means you might not be getting an effect. So what can you do if you're in this situation? Well, first, just test your serum DHT. Even if you don't have a baseline DHT test before you were on finasteride, check and make sure that it is below the range where it should be because of the medication. And if you happen to be one of these cases where finasteride's not lowering your DHT levels adequately and you're not getting a response from the drug in terms of hair growth, then you need to course correct. You need to introduce other treatments. We can talk about those later in the video, or you need to double down on your DHT reduction. You might want to upgrade to dutasteride, which has a bigger DHT reductive effect than finasteride. You might want to also double up and do it topically. We've seen that help some of our members. Again, this is just anecdotal, but it seems like these individuals need a lot more support with DHT suppression. You might want to introduce a topical androgen receptor antagonist. There are a lot out there. All of them are currently experimental. Piralutamide, Clascoterone, RU58841, which I would never recommend. Go and watch our video about Clascoterone where I mention why. There's Floridil, there's a bunch of others that are currently in development, but again, they're experimental. However, we need to recognize that you probably need more help on the DHT reduction side, so you might have to get a little bit creative. In any case, it still means there's a path for you. It's just not going to be as straightforward as somebody who is just using finasteride and getting results. And regardless of whether finasteride is or isn't working for you, you might just still want better results in general. And for this, there are clear escalation protocols. On the DHT reduction side, like I was just mentioning, one of the easiest and most accessible options is to go from oral finasteride to oral dutasteride. That confers, according to clinical data, about a 30 to 40% relative boost in hair counts versus finasteride. really impressive results overall, and in general doesn't massively change the side effect profile versus finasteride, although we'll make videos about this later. You can also add in interventions like topical minoxidil, or if you want to enhance that minoxidil, topical minoxidil plus an ingredient like retinoic acid or tretinoin, which can increase the penetration and activation of that minoxidil and really amplify its ability to regrow hair. That is especially important for non-responders of minoxidil. All of these options and many more are available widely in telehealth brands. The one that we founded, that we wanted to develop to address all of the issues that we just discussed in this video and offer opportunities for solutions, is called ULO. We offer finasteride, dutasteride, topical minoxidil, enhanced minoxidil topical formulations, and a lot more. You can check that out with the links below. But again, we are not the only shop in town. You can check out other providers. There's Hims, Keeps, Roman, and many more. So if you're in the US, you can consult with their medical providers and see if any of these treatments might be right for you pending a prescription. Beyond that, there are a lot of future treatments in development that will help to likely mitigate or potentially even overcome some of the roadblocks that we've talked about in this video. We'll make videos about those in the future. But above all, what I want you to take away from this video is that if you are truly not responding to finasteride, get a scalp biopsy to get clarity on if you actually have androgenic alopecia, and make sure that you have adequately ruled out the possibility of scalp inflammation. Those two things seem to impact the majority of individuals who truly are not responding to this medication. Because once you've identified those things, and once you fix them, your outcomes can go from non-responder to responder. You can actually get some decent hair growth in a lot of cases. So I hope this video helps. I'm wishing you the best with everything. We'll be making more content more regularly, and I will talk to you very soon.